And greetings. That's right. We're here live. That means the baby hasn't been born yet, although today is technically the due date, correct?
Correct, yep.
All right. Now, my wife assures me it is not an old wives' tale that the first baby arrives late. That is actually a typical trend. Ours even arrived about 2 days late. Anastasia was originally due on Valentine's Day. She arrived on the 16th. So, but that is a reminder at any day now. Any day now, we could be off for Aaron's paternity leave. Don't worry. Even if we're not on with live programming, we have pre-recorded a series of, we think, contemporary thematic shows of original content that you will enjoy. So we're still going to give you as much original content during Aaron's paternity leave as we possibly can. But any day now could be the big day. Is Dad excited yet, or are you like me?
Oh,
I just won't feel it until, well, I feel it.
Yeah, impatient, I would say, is more of an accurate descriptor. I'm really, like, I am excited, but I'm excited to the point of impatience.
I hear you.
I wish you'd get here.
I hear you. Well, let us know what you think about what we think. By the way, I've gotten a ton of well wishes for you and
I
Bella.
appreciate that.
And I could send them all to you, but then I think you'd be mad at me. All right. So let me just relay on behalf of all of them I've received. You have gotten a lot of well wishes in my inbox from the audience.
I appreciate that.
Steve at stevedeace.com is how you can email the program. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, and also MeWe, Parler, Gab, and Getter. You can follow me on Twitter at Steve Deace Show. And again, the last name is DEACE. If you did not hear the big announcement we had yesterday, I can reiterate this again because I needed to confirm it. I was certain I told you the truth yesterday. But for my post-workout nutrition, I had to confirm it this morning. That Rocky Road Built Bar testifies. Okay. I mean, that thing, if you loved that flavor of ice cream when you were a kid, this is the closest you're going to get to it. Okay. Without all the fillers and calories and sugar and everything else from the best tasting protein bar of all time. And if the Rocky Road is out, that's okay, because all of their other flavors are pretty great too. All of them covered in real chocolate. They're all 180 calories or less. Most of them are 160 calories or less. Up to 18 grams of protein in every one. And did I mention easy on the tummy? That's a big thing, particularly when you're talking about supplement food. You know, I mean, can I digest it? Will it give me, will I clear the room shortly thereafter? Nope. I can personally attest to that. This just checks every box, folks. You cannot do better than Built Bar. Try it now. Get 15% off your order when you use my last name, Deace, as your promo code, DEACE. When you go to Built.com, again, that is Built.com. If you want clips of the program that are free to sample and share and then free of censorship, you will find them at rumble.com/Steve Deace Show as well. And again, the last name is DEACE. By now, you know a typical Wednesday rundown. The prophet of woe and lamentation, Daniel Horowitz, will be joining us a little bit later on. At the bottom of the hour, we will begin our weekly game of buy, sell, or hold. But before we get to all of that, here is Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by What Are You Prepared to Do? One teacher in Loudoun County, Virginia, answered that question recently. She spoke to the Loudoun County School District Board about the district's policy mandating the use of preferred pronouns.
My name is Laura Morris. I have been a teacher in Loudoun County Public Schools for 5 years and a teacher for 10. In that time, I have learned so much, being on the cutting edge of educational technology and working with a diverse population of students that I have loved. This year, I have the privilege to follow my amazing fourth graders up to fifth, and I have been excited about this all summer. On the other hand, this summer I have struggled with the idea of returning to school, knowing that I'll be working yet again with a school division that, despite its shiny tech and flashy salary, promotes political ideologies that do not square with who I am as a believer in Christ. But within the last year, I was told in one of my so-called equity trainings that white, Christian, able-bodied females currently have the power in our schools, and that, quote, "this has to change." Clearly, you've made your point. You no longer value me or many other teachers you've employed in this county. So since my contract outlines the power that you have over my employment in Loudoun County Public Schools, I thought it necessary to resign in front of you. School board, I quit. I quit your policies, I quit your trainings, and I quit being a cog in a machine that tells me to push highly politicized agendas on our most vulnerable constituents, the children. I will find employment elsewhere. I encourage all parents and staff in this county to flood the private schools.
Radio host Clay Travis spoke to his local school board in Nashville against mask mandates.
Here's the truth. Our kids, under 25-year-olds, 1 in a million chance that they are going to die of COVID. They are more likely to be struck by lightning. They are more likely to be struck by lightning. They are more likely to die of the seasonal flu. Have any of you ever mandated masks for the seasonal flu? Well, shame on you, because every kid in Williamson County schools has been under more danger from the seasonal flu every year than they are for COVID. I would tell every parent here, don't let your kids wear masks.
Meanwhile, in Norman, Oklahoma, a school board member says kids without masks are murderers.
Just not okay for kids to commit murder by coming to school without a mask. And when it comes down to it, it's possible. They will cause a death of another child because they come to school without a mask.
In Michigan, check out this exchange between two school board members.
You're killing our children. That's on you.
Oh, come on.
And let me say one more thing.
I'm killing your children.
If I
Is that what you just said?
Let her finish and then
Is that
you
what
can
you
respond.
said?
That is what I said.
Dr. Anthony Fauci says, F your freedom.
Dr. Fauci, do you agree with Randy Weingarten, the head of the largest teachers union in the country, who came out yesterday and said, yes, teachers should be vaccinated inside schools? Do you think they should be mandated to be vaccinated?
Yeah, I'm going to upset some people on this, but I think we should. I mean, we are in a critical situation now. We've had 615,000 plus deaths, and we are in a major surge now. I'm sorry. I mean, I know people must like to have their individual freedom and not be told to do something, but I think we're in such a serious situation now that under certain circumstances, mandates should be done.
Lindsey Graham, your thoughts?
Good to see you back.
Good to be back. Thank you for the inquiries about my well-being to all my colleagues. I appreciate the good wishes and the phone calls and the food, and I made it. I think the worst is behind me. I want to reinforce a simple message. If you haven't been vaccinated regarding the COVID problem, you need to get vaccinated. I've been vaccinated, and I got COVID anyway. A couple of really bad days, but I'm doing better. I'm confident if I hadn't had the vaccine, it'd have been a lot worse.
Learning Chinese today. Today's phrase is, true vaccination has not been tried.
尚未尝试过真正的疫苗接种。
Some good news. United Airlines made waves recently when it required all of its employees to take the COVID-19 jab. But after an uprising of mechanics and pilots and crew members, Delta, Southwest, and American Airlines announced recently they will not be requiring employees to take the jab, which puts United in a real pickle. YouTube has censored Kentucky Senator Rand Paul after the senator published multiple videos regarding COVID-19 on his account, including video of a speech given on the Senate floor. Moving on, the U.S. Senate passed a $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill yesterday. In total, 19 Republicans voted for the bill, which includes such provisions as money for studying limousine safety, requiring breathalyzers in all new cars, and money to promote lady truckers. Of course, we've already heard the news that New York Governor Andrew Cuomo resigned in disgrace yesterday.
Recently, certain allegations have come to light about my inappropriate conduct. I'm here to set the record straight. I totally did all of it.
Some reaction to that news, starting with Joe Biden.
Thought he's done a hell of a job. Thought he's done a hell of a job. That's why it's so sad.
Actor Alec Baldwin says Cuomo's ouster is an example of, quote, cancel culture. In completely unrelated news, why so tense, Gavin?
I'm nice if our homegrown teams start focusing on what's right. Everybody outside this state is bitching about this state. And guys, forgive me, I know I'm a little pointed today, but I've been taking a lot. from a few folks for a lot of months. So it's nice to be able to express myself too.
Texas House Speaker Dade Phelan has signed 52 civil arrest warrants for absent Texas House Democrats. Warrants are due to be delivered today and command the sergeant at arms to take the Democrats into custody and deliver them to the House. And finally, Chet Hanks for president.
Hey guys, so just checking in. Look, I've been kind of on the fence about this for a while. That's why I've never spoke on it. But with the amount of people that I know recently that have gotten COVID, and with like the numbers rising, I think it's important for me to say, like, I got the vaccine. I think everybody should. I think it's really important, like, that we all do this just as like citizens, as Americans. We have to look out for each other and get this under control, guys. So like, I suggest to all my followers, you guys set an appointment and get the vaccine first thing. Psych! If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I never had COVID. You ain't sticking me with that needle. It's the flu. Get over it, okay? If you're sick, stay inside. I'm tired of having okay? Why we working around y'all? If you're in danger, stay your ass inside. I'm tired of wearing a mask.
Yes, that's Tom Hanks' son, and that's what happened while we were away.
I'll allow it. Yes, I will. Aaron's Montage brought to you by our friends at Omega XL. If you are struggling with chronic pain, not because, hey, I'm doing a project, fell off the ladder, something hurts. That's not the pain we're talking about. And chances are you probably need to go see a healthcare professional. I mean the kind of chronic pain that just lingers, the stiffness, the achiness in your neck, back, shoulders, etc. Chances are that's the result of inflammation. And if you want an effective, all-natural anti-inflammatory, which I can personally attest to its efficacy because I use it daily, check out Omega XL. Backed by 35 years of clinical research, it will attack the inflammation that's causing your pain before it causes something even worse. If you want to give it a shot today, buy one, get one free when you go to omegaxl.com/Steve. Buy one bottle, get a second one for free today at omegaxl.com/Steve, or you can call them at 800-844-4888. That's 800-844-4888. In the overtime today, we're going to take a look at more of the goodies that are the tasty goodness that is inside the latest Washington boondoggle. By the way, when you look at those 19 Republicans that voted for this yesterday, have you looked at the states many of them are from? Alaska, both Dakotas, Idaho. I mean, these are places where if they see a Democrat on the street, they call 911. Utah. Looking at you, Willard.
South Carolina. Louisiana.
You know, I mean, these real swing states. Okay. We're going to get more into this in the overtime today at blazetv.com/Deace. Again, blazetv.com/Deace. If you're a Blaze TV subscriber, just go there later today. We'll record it for you right after today's show, and then you'll be able to watch it there today. If you're not yet a Blaze TV subscriber, though, blazetv.com/Deace is where you can go to become one and get a discounted subscription today at blazetv.com/Deace. Aaron, that was a montage, brother. You did what I did on Monday. You just decided, hey, man, I'm emptying the tank. Yeah. Any day now, I might not get a chance to do one of these for 10 days, so I'm going to let it rip.
I kind of hope the baby comes today because I'm not sure if I'm going to have any content tomorrow.
We could do whole hours on about a half dozen of the things in here and substantial commentary on others. Let me highlight 3 of them. The story of the other airlines. What happened here is the other pilots and stewardesses and employees said, yeah, we're not going along with this. This won't be a trend. You'll have to just replace all of us. Right now, and I love the speech that the woman made to her school board at the top of the montage. I wish, though, I could have spoken to her before she did it. Don't quit. Don't play voluntary martyr. Make them remove you. Make them do it. Because right now we have 1 million more help wanteds than people working in America. I don't know of any major population center you can go in this country and not drive down almost any main road and see help wanted almost everywhere. Use the leverage you have. Use it. They cannot fire you all. Make them do it. Call their bluff. The airline workers did this for the other airlines. And now the other airlines are like, yeah, you got them, United. See ya. We're out. I mean, if you're American, how many? You just went through a weekend. You just canceled how many flights, right?
Yeah.
I mean, people over the country were stranded for like 2-3 days, correct?
What did you say, Todd? 30, 40%?
I saw as high as 40% of their flights were canceled within like a 48-hour period.
And I mean, you just got freaking crushed for that, right?
Yeah.
You've got 10% of your workforce comes to you and says, yeah, that's going to be a no for me, dog. You're going to think twice about that,
I hope
right?
so, yeah.
Well, they clearly did.
Yeah.
They clearly did. Use the leverage you have. You have leverage. They cannot fire all of you. As it was once said in the very underrated movie Boomerang, you got to coordinate. You have to coordinate. Too many of you acting on your own. And I love the conviction, okay? But you're not alone. The triple braided cord is tougher to break. God himself assembled a team before he went full bore into his public ministry, right?
Yes.
He even assembled a team. Because while he was fully God in that mortal shell, he was also fully human. That's why he could cry. That's why he could be sad. That's why he could be hungry. That's why he could be tired. He even said to his disciples, you keep watch while I pray. He assembled a team. We, I think, then probably could use a team, maybe, right? And any of us setting our divinity aside for the moment? No? No. Talk to each other. Talk to others. You're not alone. Sometimes it does call on you or me or one of us to be the Martin Luther here and say, here I stand, I can do no more, me against the world. But I promise you, in this case, you're not alone. You're not. You're not. Because ultimately, what is it we have to do? We have to change the math here. The pain of imposing this on people has to be greater than the pain that you will experience for being the imposee. It has to be more painful for the imposer. The other airlines looked at this and said, yeah, we can't pay this right now. Now, do I think that's a forever? Nope. But for now, they realized they could not afford this. That is what needs to happen all over the workforce in America, at every school board in America. I will tell you, I was having this conversation with a friend of mine yesterday. I think Randy Weingarten, the head of the teacher, one of the head of the big teacher unions, is basically a high priestess in the church of Satan. I'm in a synagogue of Satan. I mean, I really believe that. Yeah. I mean, I think that her and her ilk have turned what should be a very high vocation and important calling into the devil's youth ministry in our schools on our dime, period. That being said, while I detest what she stands for, on a human personal level, I don't really struggle with like hating her. You know what I'm saying? Like, I get where she's coming from. You know what I mean? I know what team she's on. I smell the sulfur. I see you. I feel you. I know her. I get it. All right? At least you're honest. You know who I struggle hating? The Lindsey Grahams of the world. That's where you need to pray for me. Because, I mean, I in fact, I've prayed about it, and I feel real good about where I'm at right now. I hate the people. I struggle not to hate the people pretending to wear my jersey who stabbed me in the back. That, even by that effeminate jackass's standards. Run out and get what didn't work for me. Has to be the absolute crappiest sales pitch we've heard during this pandemic yet. It would have been worse for me if I. Do you know how we prove that? Do you know how we could prove it would have been worse for him? Do we know that?
It's called the unfalsifiability fallacy.
Just an effeminate jackass. And South Carolinians, you ought to be ashamed. Sending that turd with corns in it year after year, cycle after cycle. Shame, shame, shame. If Lindsey Graham was on fire on the side of the road and I had to pee and it said next rest stop 100 miles, brother, I'm going to take my chances and keep on driving. Keep on going. Now, see, if I saw Randy Weingarten on the side of the road, I'd stop and pick her ass up because I got a few things to say to her. You know what I'm saying? I want to see what makes her tick. Lindsey Graham, though, that's what Cicero's enemy within the gates is all about. And again, it's not Maine, some rhino from Massachusetts, South Carolina. Disgusting. Next, in my career, I have had really unique access to the political system. And I don't just mean because of what I do for the average American. I mean even amongst my peer group. I mean, nobody in our business has ever had, nor will ever again have, a bigger, more influential show than Rush Limbaugh. But, frankly, for the last few years, well, until the rise of Trump and, of course, the closeness of his relationship that he had with the man that went on to become president, but ironically, I also had a chance to have that kind of level of relationship, okay? Until the era of Trump for several years, I frankly had more access to the process than he did because of where I lived, that they all come here. They all call on people like me here in the First in the Nation caucus state. I have been propositioned, pitched, lied to by the best or the worst. Many names you would know. Men who went on to get elected president, frankly. I'm a pretty hardened skeptic. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To say the least.
That I have to fight temptations to be cynical, right?
Right.
Like I got a note today, I think I forwarded on to you guys, didn't I? From a gentleman who said, hey, you guys' show is a big reason that we never closed our church, and we were there for so many people who struggled last year. And now our student ministries, we get set for another school year. It's got an explosive growth, made a big difference being there for people instead of shutting our doors. And I need those notes, man. Thank you. Because your notes, your feedback there, you're my plumb line on that. That kind of feedback to know that I am making a difference. I mean, I'm right on the line of just pure cynic. And I don't think it's really within the Christian worldview to cross into a realm of that level of cynicism. And I have to fight that all the time. And so when I see notes like that from you guys, you pull me back from the brink, man, because there are times I walk right up to the pool that says cynicism, nihilistic cynicism. I look in, that's what I was apologizing for the other day. I mean, last Wednesday, I stuck my foot in there, man. I'm like, I don't know. Going through a bit of an August heat wave, this water feels pretty good. I contemplated maybe a full immersion baptism in that puppy. So those notes are really important to me. Thank you. But at the very least, I think I've established myself as a fairly hardened skeptic. Fair?
Yes.
Okay. I have never seen anything like Anthony Fauci. Nothing. I mean, I've seen breathtaking levels of betrayals. I've been victimized by them a couple times myself. I just, this is beyond the scope of normal politics, I believe. I really believe you're dealing with a level of spiritual malevolence that I just, he lies about everything. And even the stuff he says that he lies about often doesn't even have a basis in truth. Can I give you an example? In that video clip, if you let it play, the one that was Aaron's montage, it goes on to talk about how our hospitals are filling up with children. Last week, would you like to know what, according to CDC's own data, I went and looked it up this morning. Would you like to know what the actual percentage of American hospitalizations for COVID with school-age children was last week in America? I'll tell you. It was 1.8% of all hospitalizations for COVID in America were school-age kids. 1.8. And that's if there's a lot of talk right now that they're conflating RSV with COVID. I'm not even going to account for that, okay? I'm just going to go by the actual data. I won't even begin to delve into that nuance. Last week, 1.8% of all hospitalizations in America for COVID, according to CDC, were school-aged children, ages 5 to 17. Furthermore, that number is actually 112% lower than what it was at the end of the last school year. Would you like to know what the highest percentage, and this is all, you guys are all going to email me for a link. I have posted this stuff on all my socials. With the link, you can go look at it yourself. Would you like to know what the highest percentage of school-aged hospitalizations in the country has been since the pandemic began? So since March of 2020? It's 3.4%. That's the highest it's ever been. 3.4%. That's the highest it has ever been.
And that's also, we know, and that evidence was out there recently, and you'll say the same thing, and rightly so. We won't even account for that, but I'm just going to mention it. A lot of those kids don't even come in for COVID. They come in for something else, and then they test for it.
I mean, the UK found there was an overwhelming percentage of their COVID hospitalizations for children that were not actually for COVID. They did a study on that. But again, I'm not even going to account for that.
Agreed.
Okay, because the numbers, even using their own metric system, speaks for itself.
You're not allowed to hope, Steve. You're just not allowed to hope.
The man, I just have not encountered. I've not lived at a time of a Mussolini or Mao or Stalin or Hitler. I can't resonate with this. Maybe some of you who are old enough to remember those days, although that generation is largely passing away. I don't know what it's like to be gaslighted on this level. And trust me, folks, I've been exposed to a lot more of this process than a lot of you have, including a lot of the people that are making a lot bigger bank than me that you listen to and watch as well as me. I've been exposed to it more than most of them. I've never seen anything like this. It's what Christ says about the enemy. There is no truth in him. None. I don't know. Remember, at this time last year, he was honoring Andrew Cuomo for having, quote, done it right. The man who committed one of the worst atrocities in modern American history in his own nursing homes. Oh, by the way, cases in New York State have gone up 522% the last 60 days, by the way. 522%. They're not even in their season like they are down south with the Sun Belt. It's not even their season. Cases have gone up 522% in New York State in the last 60 days. New York still ranks number 2 in overall death rate with COVID in America. Florida, by the way, is 26th. There's a level of malevolence here that I've just not encountered in my career. So just how much equity do you have in your home? You know, you could find out the hard way when you go to access it. And it's gone because of a growing cybercrime known as home title theft. And that's why you want to check out our friends at Home Title Lock. That's what they do. Try to prevent this from happening to you. Here's how it goes down. First, cyber thieves are constantly searching public databases looking for high equity homes. Next, they'll pull your home's online title, maybe some times using personal data they got from a data breach somewhere, like a Facebook or a credit card company. And so they know a middle initial, a maiden name, the elementary school you went to, the kind of thing that you have plugged in to say, hey, if I lose my password or something, here's how I identify as me. They can then forge your signature on a quitclaim deed, making it look like you've sold your home to them. And before you know it, they've now got access to all of your equity. Don't let this happen to you. All right. And that's why you want to contact our friends at Home Title Lock. Right now, they want to offer you a complete title history of your home. That's normally a $100 value. They'll give it to you today for free. Make sure your home's title is in the free and clear, has not been tampered with. When you go to HomeTitleLock.com, again, $100 value for free. It's called the title history of your home at HomeTitleLock.com. Let's get to it. It is one of the most fun things we do each and every week. It is called Buy, Sell, or Hold. Aaron has accumulated a series of positions and predictions on various issues of the day. Todd, they will be presented to you and me one by one. You and I will decide it. Are we going to buy that? Are we going to sell that? Maybe have a reason why that is the case. If we, however, decide to use a hold for any reason other than, wow, I can't shred whatever dignity is left in this program by acknowledging this premise. If you use that for any reason other than that, if you punk out in a hold, you have to give Lindsey Graham his next jab.
Stakes just keep getting higher and higher.
Is that going to be a no from you, dog?
Yeah.
Okay. Aaron, go ahead.
We'll begin with Sean Griffith's top 5 slogans for Trump's 2024 run. Number 5, Big Daddy Pfizer.
Oh my gosh.
This is going to be brutal, guys.
If that's the start, okay.
Vote for centrist justices for all.
Who's this?
This is Sean Griffiths.
Sean is attempting to thin my audience. Yeah. All right, go ahead.
3, build the wall back better. 2, make America vaccinated again. And number 1, jab.
Like Jeb, I see what he did. What he did there. That's freaking brutal, man.
We'll move on. Dueling politics. From local school boards to the White House, the reason they continue to stand against responding to our protest over COVID and critical race theory is they want to provoke us to make a Cold War hot.
That's absolutely in there on some level. It's not all of it, but that's part of it, yes.
I certainly think the spirit of the age behind such impulses and movements does want to do that. Whether the people in these positions themselves believe that or not, or are that level of shrewd or cunning, I highly doubt. I mean, they can be useful idiots, right? Okay.
Yes.
But whether they are cognitively getting together and thinking, hey guys, I think you're probably giving them on a human level too much credit. In fact, way too much credit. Do I think the spiritual malevolence, the spirit of the age that is behind, again, such movements and impositions, they would love that because that's a zero-sum game. There's like no one wins there. Would they love that? Sure, it would absolutely love that. This is why we have to use our peaceable means. What I think is going on inside the heads of the people that are the tools of the enemy here, from a human standpoint, one is they have been indoctrinated into a pagan belief system with really almost no exposure to anything else. They were told everything else means that you are a racist, misogynistic, xenophobic, homophobic bigot. They're on a mission from God. Okay, to quote the Blues Brothers here, small g. Now, their God has, looks a little bit more like Baal, if you know what I'm saying. Okay, but I mean, this is holy writ to them. This is why I get to point number 2. You have to show them. Let me put it another way. How many years have conservative and or Christian religious government school teachers in this country swallowed the whistle when they walked into the classroom? Because I have a job to do and I can't impose my belief system on the kids. So let me go ahead and impose the spirit of the ages belief system on them instead, right?
Yes.
Right. How many times have we swallowed the whistle rather than call the foul because it would cost us a job, a relationship, right?
All the time.
All the time. We have for decades. It's why we're here now. This is our fault. We have to accept that. We're here because we permitted this. Why did Dave Deace keep wailing on me? Because I kept permitting it. Tried to get to the point I wasn't going to permit it anymore, and that's the only way that made it stop, right? So that's how this works. It's that whole if you give a mouse a cookie thing. We offered an inch, man. They took a solar system. So they are now conditioned to believe that they can impose whatever they want and will get minimal resistance. Even when you show up with a massive rally that went on in suburban Nashville last night, and props to all of you and to Clay and everybody involved in that. Understand, though, they still don't believe you mean this. So you better have 20, 30, 40, 50 parents, shouldn't be hard to find in a crowd that small, that large, that are showing up on day one of the school, day one of the district. Our kids aren't masked. Expel them all. Ain't happening. We'll call you on it. I think this, we have to show them that the calculus has changed. We will push back. We will not swallow the whistle any longer. We're going to make you make some free throws now. And maybe you can make them. Well, maybe you can step up to the charity stripe there on national TV with a full house in the stands, yelling, screaming, all that pressure. And maybe you'll step up like Ramil Robinson in the 89 NCAA championship and just drain those two. Maybe you'll do it.
But we're going to find out.
We're going to find out. See, we've not made them even step up to the line. We don't even call fouls. We just, we got too much to risk. A home, a job, a military post. I've got a lot of years vested. Okay, I'm not saying those things aren't important, but understand that if you're not willing to risk any of those things, you cannot win. There is no other process. I wish there was. They control the leadership sectors of every major cultural influence in this culture. The spirit of the age controls almost all of them. So the only way out is through. There is no clever backdoor at the Alamo. There is no thermal exhaust port. I wish there was, man. There's not. Well, Steve, that's easy for you to say. Really? I mean, I haven't risked anything recently, right? I mean, I haven't played this card in a while, but I spent the entire 2016 election alienating vast swaths of my audience, did I not?
Correct.
Because I thought I was right. Now, the dude became president and on some level proved me wrong, which is why I voted for and supported him the next time, right? But until he proved me wrong, did it matter how many damn emails I got? Did it matter how many phone calls I got from Salem Brass or anything else I got?
It did not.
It didn't matter at all. In fact, didn't I tell you guys up front, hey, we all may lose our jobs over this, just so you know. Be warned, go work someplace else if you don't want to risk that. I get it, but it's my name on the marquee and I'm going to risk that. I took a lot bigger risk in this last year with COVID. A lot bigger risk. If I'm wrong on any of that, I'm gone. This book never hits number one. It's never written. Maybe you don't even hear from me again. Several years ago, I actually I flirted with getting out of politics. Tried out with a national sports radio network. They told me they loved the audition. But then when they did their research on me and realized probably what it was going to take to hire somebody with my political baggage, I stopped hearing back. I don't blame them. I get it. So, I've got nowhere else to go, man. I'm like Richard Gere, an officer and a gentleman. This is it for me. I'm pot committed at this point. If I did not turn out to be right about the data that I was analyzing at this time last year, I'm not here this time this year and probably doing something a lot different for a living. Don't tell me I haven't risked anything. I've risked quite a bit. When I thought it was safe to stay at work, what did we do? We kept working in person, did we not?
The whole time.
The whole time. When things began to open back up first weekend, what did I do? I went and rented a hotel room, went out to eat right away, took my kids. Got on an airplane, flew all over the country. Texas, California, all over the place. I'm not asking you to do anything I haven't done. School boards, that was the very first thing I did. Organize at the school board level, get one of my best friends elected to the school board. That was the first thing I ever did with my activism in this state. I'm not asking you guys to do, I'm not vaccinated either. I've got natural immunity. My mom didn't have a confirmed diagnosis of COVID and has literally every pre-existing condition you could imagine and is in her 60s. What did I tell her to do?
Get vaccinated.
Get vaccinated. Take your shot with that. There's not once, folks, I've not urged and encouraged you to do something I myself have not done or wrestled with. So if we're not willing to risk anything, then nothing is what we'll get in return. There will be no other way out of this other than a direct confrontation. It can be peaceable, or we can let it keep going and going and going and going until finally a group, there's a dozen Bundy ranches that have just had enough, and then it no longer will be. And then in the bowels of hell, they belly laugh. They got what they wanted. Did that answer the question?
I believe so.
Okay.
We'll move on to Darren Ray. Since the world was so mask/lockdown compliant, some form of global warming lockdowns will be implemented vis-a-vis the World Economic Forum's 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development.
You mean like somewhere in the world? Sure.
Yeah, I've been saying that since the very beginning.
Yeah, I could absolutely buy that. You bet. Yeah.
Next up, we'll go to Delta GR 33N79, who says the Mount Rushmore.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah. Mount Rushmore of emotional college football games so far in the 2000s.
Okay, now finally let's make you're my happy place. Okay.
Yeah, this is only of the 2000s. The 2007 Fiesta Bowl with Boise State over Oklahoma. I didn't realize Adrian Peterson was on that.
I was just going to say, Adrian Peterson was on that Oklahoma team.
Yeah.
Yes, the Statue of Liberty play. I'm totally down with that. Yeah.
That's in the 2000s?
That's
not in the...
Yeah. Early 2000s, but yeah.
Wow, I thought that seems like a long time ago now.
Well, I mean, it is 2021.
14 years ago.
It is 14 years ago. That is a long time ago.
Yeah, I'll take it. Yeah.
Okay. The 2013 Auburn, Alabama Iron Bowl.
Yes.
That has to be. I mean, I remember, we were watching that at the house. The whole family sitting around having dinner when that happened live, and even members of the family don't even care. Lost their damn minds when they saw that. Okay.
I was in the den trying to work on my parents. I was at my parents' place. I was in the den trying to work on their computer, and I heard Dad yell out in the living room.
Yeah. People forget just a couple weeks before that when they played Georgia. Do you remember this? They had a similar thing where they tried to throw a bomb. I think Georgia was going to try to win the game. Georgia almost picked it off. It deflected off the Georgia DB right into the hands of the Auburn receiver, who then ran it in for the game-winning touchdown. So, I mean, that Auburn team that year kind of lived a bit of a charmed life, no doubt. Yeah.
This is, let's see, next one. The 2016 Alamo Bowl, TCU over Oregon. I don't remember this one.
I do remember Oregon was up 31-3 at halftime. Okay. But with all due respect, I just don't think you can put the Alamo Bowl there. On any context, unless it involved some great human achievement. You know what I'm saying? A guy went out there and pulled an Emmitt Smith and played on a separated shoulder or something. It's a fun bowl game, but it's also a glorified exhibition. There's an obvious game missing from here, by the way. Can I insert one?
Yes.
Okay, you have to put the 2002 national championship game, Miami and Ohio State. Went to overtime, the controversial pass interference call. Something like 59 guys that played in that game went on to play in the NFL.
That's crazy.
Some obscene number.
What about the Vince Young national championship?
And then that has to be there. That's one of the greatest games ever played in any era. Yeah. The last game of the great Keith Jackson's call, that has to be, those two have to be on this list. In this century at least, and I might argue that the Vince Young USC game in any century belongs on the list.
The final one he has is the 2018 Purdue over Ohio State. That's the Tyler Trent game. That was a really great game,
and
really emotional.
I can, and the emotion of all that, I'd be fine with that being on the list. I just think somewhere at least one of the two games we just talked about has to be on the list somewhere.
Agreed. What do you think, Todd?
This window was way too broad for me to sufficiently diagnose, so I will simply buy.
Some breaking news from Reuters. Pfizer Moderna shares down as the European Medicines Agency evaluates 3 new possible side effects of the mRNA COVID-19 vaccines.
Don't say.
Next up, I identify as vaccinated says if Trump was still president, he would have mandated the COVID vaccine to all federal employees by now.
Buy.
Tell me why you're a buy.
Why? Because I don't. I mean, what was it yesterday or the day before when we were talking about his? Yeah, well, you were criticizing him for what he said. How many people were saved?
He claimed he saved 100 million people,
he would,
which is just not true.
He's not capable of just whatever a win could be. That all of us would have been the thing that kind of threaded the needle and brought as many people together as possible. He couldn't just let that be there. He would have to, Oz goes up to 11. It would never stop. He would have to overdo it.
I might have to give Lindsay a jab because I really don't know. I don't. I mean, last year was a series of Lemony Snicket level unfortunate events. I mean, a series of awful decisions that led to the unraveling of a very promising presidency. And I just don't know him well enough to know, had he learned his lessons from that? There's also how the media would be 180 different now if he were president on the vaccine. You know what I'm saying? There's so many variables that I'm going to hold. I don't know the answer to the question. It's a great question. I don't know the answer. Hour 2 is next. Back again with Hour 2, live and on demand here on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. Steve Deace here with Todd Erzin, Aaron McIntyre, and all of you. Let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, @Steve Deace Show. You can also find us on MeWe, Parler, Gab, and Getter. You'll find free clips of the show minus censorship at rumble.com/Steve Deace Show as well. And for those of you that listen to the podcast, thank you so much. You are a big part of our show's success over the last year. If you've not had the chance to do so yet, please leave us a 5-star review, click the subscribe and or follow button on the podcast platform of your preference. Those things help the show to grow. And so we thank all of you that have done those things already. Working looks different for everybody these days. But that's why if you're out and about in a home office or working on a solo project, there's a better way to work on what you love the most, or there is no better way to work on what you love the most than with the premium audio earbuds from Raycon. If you need a pair of wireless earbuds to take it from conference calls to Zoom meetings, Raycon's E85 work earbuds are a game changer. I just got these in the mail yesterday. I've not had the chance to try them yet. I had to grab them away before Noah saw them, my son, because when the first delivery of Raycons came in and I tried them the first couple days and loved them, and then he came up to me, he's like, "Are those Raycons?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Wow, those are really cool." And he kind of just gave me those puppy dog eyes that he used to give me when he was a little dude, and it was still okay for me to tell him he was cute. No, he's of course almost as big as me. And I just looked at him, I'm like, "You want to borrow?" He's like, "Yeah, do you mind?" I said, "Sure." That was almost 6 months ago. Do you think I've seen them since?
I love how he's just always probing for weakness in you.
Yes. It worked. Yeah, I've not seen them. So when this came in yesterday, I'm like, crap, man, I'm throwing this in my briefcase right now before he gets a hand on these so I can try these for myself. Raycon's E85s aren't just great for work. They're perfect for anytime, anywhere you need great audio. There's also active noise cancelizing for maximum focus, ambient mode for when you want to hear the world around you as well. All right. And their earbuds boast a 32-hour battery life. So if you want to give them a shot, they've got a 45-day return policy. You can do so right now at buyraycon, C-O-N, buyraycon.com/Steve. Get 15% off your entire Raycon order. That's buyraycon.com/Steve, buyraycon.com/Steve. Let's get back to buy, sell, or hold. Aaron.
This next one is from me, actually. So, school districts in Austin, Texas have joined Dallas, Texas in fighting back and disobeying the moratorium on mask mandates brought about by Texas Governor Greg Abbott. Buy, sell, or hold, Abbott will follow in the footsteps of DeSantis once more and threaten to withhold funding from school officials who impose mask mandates.
Sell.
Agreed.
I'm going to buy. Not because I have any faith in Greg Abbott, but because of the magic word primary. Okay? So that's why. But guys, I'm also curious to see how far DeSantis is willing to go. I mean, he has defined what going far means on our side for the last, year, right?
Yes.
But now the other side has decided, okay, all right, we're going to test you a little bit and see if you really mean it, you know? We came up with a sham poll that showed Charlie Crist beating you last week, which is a sham. But so we'll push back. We'll just see if you mean it. And, so they've decided to hit back on him a little bit. And so it'll be fascinating to see how far he's willing to go too, right?
I agree.
But he's also not facing an active primary like Greg Abbott is, So I'll buy out of belief in the primary process, not Greg Abbott. But if there weren't a primary, I'd have said sold before Aaron got it out of his mouth.
Next up, Mini Bomber says demons in hell are going on strike and unionizing because human choices of late are putting them out of work.
I love the spirit of this. So I'll buy. It's not true, but I'll buy because I love the spirit of it.
Agreed.
Aaron Reale, if vaccines work and masks work even better, we should clearly just inject everyone with masks so that everyone is fully maskinated and protected from COVID.
Finally.
That's chef's kiss. That's
2 for 1.
Yeah, man, that's beautiful.
Why don't we vaccinate the masks and then turn the masks into enemas?
I love that. I do. Yeah.
All the science is as sound as everything else we've heard so far.
There was a study out last week. Daniel and I went through it together. And what it showed was, you guys are going to love this, okay? Do you guys remember that Daniel put out a tweet last week about another study that shows natural immunity is superior to vaccinated immunity?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so him and I were looking at that study together, going through it and discussing it on our DMs last week. And I discovered a little nugget inside this study. You guys ready for this? That in order for the vaccines to reach the efficacy, the maximum efficacy that was advertised in the trials, the study says they have to vaccinate those with natural immunity. That in order for the vaccines to reach the level of immunity people were sold that they were getting with these, they have to vaccinate the people who already have immunity. It says that in the study. It says it right there in the study. I like them apples.
No.
I hate apples.
What about apple cider vinegar, Todd? What about those kind of apples? Yeah. Aaron Brinley, top 10 Christian music acts, I should say, of all time. Number 10, Carman.
Carmen, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if I can go with that one. I mean, I know a lot of people liked him, but not my cup of tea. You're not involved.
I did this. I selected this one just for those reactions.
Todd gets so confused when we delve into evangelical subculture. One of these times, one of y'all Romanists need to send Aaron a list of your top 10 Gregorian chanters and just see what Aaron and I's look on our face. What in the Sam Hill is this? Okay.
Number 10. Number 9.
Yes. Yeah. Lucia of Assisi. What? Who is that? Okay. Yes.
Number 9, Kirk Franklin.
I could buy that. Yeah. I could buy that.
Number 8, Newsboys.
I've heard of them.
They've got to be higher on the list, don't you think?
Absolutely.
They have to be much higher on the list.
Number 7, Stephen Curtis Chapman.
Are they like the biggest selling Christian band of all time?
I think that's either Mercy Me or Casting Crowns.
Okay. But would they have been before the emergence of those two groups?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Number 7, Stephen Curtis Chapman.
Absolutely needs to be on the list
I
for
Danced
sure.
with Cinderella, right?
Yep.
I mean, the amount of times I've danced with my daughters to that song, wow.
Number 6, Petra.
That's some old school, predates me, so I got to sell on that. That's, man, that's back when I was, Love Me Like a Gong Baby, Come and Get It On. Okay, I mean, I was doing Def Leppard in those days, man. Not that, so I got to sell on that. Okay.
I haven't heard of him.
Number 5, Stryper.
Again, different era. Although I remember them crossing
Petra
over.
and Stryper are Christian bands.
Yeah,
They sound like 80s hair bands.
Yeah, Stryper
They
actually
kinda
had
were, yeah.
some crossover songs on MTV.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, I was doing, different music back then, so I got to sell on that.
Number 4, DC Talk.
They certainly belong on the list. To me, I think there's a clear omission here. But we'll when I look at the list. But keep going.
Number 3, Sandy Patty.
Again, man, I'm gonna have to okay Boomery on that one. I don't know. Gotta pass on that.
Number 2, Michael W. Smith.
I mean, you could argue he should be number 1.
Number 1, Amy Grant.
I can see why she's number 1. Wouldn't be my number 1. But
Michael
I can
W.
see.
Smith and Amy Grant's Christmas show.
So
I've been to 3 or 4 of their Christmas shows. Just absolutely amazing.
To me, 3 of my favorites are not on the list. That would be Mercy Me, Casting Crowns, and Third Day. I think particularly, Mercy Me has the greatest selling Christian song of all time, probably since John Newton. Okay.
Have you ever seen them in concert?
I did.
They actually put on a pretty good show.
Yeah, we saw them up at Hilton about 10 years ago when that song was still, or 10, 15 years ago now. But in terms of my musical taste, Third Day and Casting Crowns are right in, they're the sweet spot of the bat. They would have to be very high on my list.
Todd, any more thoughts?
No.
Okay. Moving on, Jeff the Drunk Kuro says...
Your thoughts on Lucia of Assisi? Go ahead, I'm sorry. Okay.
Before October 1st, the Oakland A's will announce that they'll move the franchise to Las Vegas.
I don't know about the date, but I think that we're getting very close to that, so I will buy.
Are we? I mean,
to that relocation, I do think we're close to that.
My baseball boycott has been pure. I mean, I don't know
I'm
what's
impressed.
going on.
Yeah, I'm impressed. Okay. All right.
Next one is from Austin May. Top 5 football movies of all time. Number 5, Facing the Giants.
Okay, guys. Guys. It's an adorable film, okay? It wasn't the Kendrick brothers, like their very first real hit, okay? It's an adorable little Christian film, okay? What else? Let me see the rest of the list before real quick.
Number 4, We Are Marshall.
Okay, so it's better than... It's better than Brian's Song. It's better than
Blindside.
The Blind Side.
Blindside.
How about, what was it? The prison football movie. What am I thinking of with Burt Reynolds?
The Longest Yard.
The Longest Yard. It's better than that. I mean, guys, come on. It's not. Okay? It's not. And having met Alex Kendrick before and spent some time with him at CNP movie or CNP event privately, I actually think if he were here now, he would tell us, guys, no, it's not better than those movies. It's not.
Your sanctimony on these lists is one of my favorite things.
I know you
of all
like
time.
it. I know you do.
Number 4, We Are Marshall.
I'm fine with it being there. Yeah.
Number 3, you buying that, Todd? At number 4?
Sure.
Okay. Number 3, Friday Night Lights.
I'm fine with it being there. Wouldn't be.
Never seen it.
I'm not as big on it as other people are, but I understand why it's there. Yeah.
Number 2, Rudy.
Of course, that belongs on the list somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
Number 1, Remember the Titans.
And of course, that belongs on the list somewhere too.
Sure.
Yeah. There is actually a Christian football movie, if you want to put one on, that is actually far better in terms of quality of production than Facing the Giants. It's called Woodlawn. That was about, I think, 8 or 9, 10 years old now with Sean Astin. I would highly recommend. That's very, very well done. For fun, well, first of all, you're missing maybe my son Noah's favorite football movie, In the Waterboy. Okay.
Oh yeah.
He freaking loves that movie. But so do I. But I watched The Program last week. I'd probably not seen that movie. I mean, it came out like 30 years ago, like 92, 93. I maybe haven't seen it since then. Do you remember that film?
I remember it, but I haven't seen it.
Wow, does it have like every college sports scandal steroids, sexual assault. It's just like they just checked the box. It's got every bromide in that film.
If you haven't seen it, and I think we have mentioned on the show, it's a Christian film about the Arkansas lineman who got drafted by the Colts. It's
the
really,
guy that with the goggles,
yes,
who was like went from walk on to like all American.
It's really, really good and really
I've never had a chance
made.
to watch that. You would recommend it? It's
highly,
good? Okay.
highly.
We played against them and we played against him when he was on the Arkansas team. I think in 1998. I think he was on that team. We played them in the Citrus Bowl. So
number 2 and number 1, Rudy and Remember the Titans, respectively.
I think they, in my opinion, they would be 1 and 2.
Yeah.
In some order. Yeah.
Moving on, this Fat Bidge 70 says, "You Mount Rushmore of most satisfying revenge kills on film." This is his Mount Rushmore.
Okay.
Benjamin Martin Tavington in The Patriot.
Yes, that guy needed to die.
Yeah.
Yes.
He was awesome.
Maximus, Commodore, and Gladiator.
Commodus.
I'm sorry, Commodus. My bad.
Yes.
I mean, and that's like the number 1 of all time. Okay. That is the number 1 of all time. I mean, that could very well be the greatest dude code movie ever made, is Gladiator, right?
I'm not arguing.
Okay. So, I mean, that's got to be number 1.
David Mills, John Doe, 7.
I didn't get the 7 hype in the 90s. I watched it again last year during quarantine, and it was okay. I just didn't get the whole, I didn't think it was like some next level event.
It's a really, really good movie, but you can't buy on this one because it was a test that Brad Pitt failed.
Right.
He had to offer. He was being manipulated and being controlled, and God only knows I would have pulled the trigger too. But the point of it was that at the end, that was you had to not kill him, and that would be Brad Pitt's victory and the loss for. So can't. The rules don't apply to this one.
See, Inigo Montoya, Count Rugen, The Princess Bride.
Yes.
I just think it's funny that this was even included, so I like it. So
has to be there.
Next up, Grant Asaski says Larry Elder has a better chance at becoming the California governor than Matthew McConaughey would be of becoming governor of Texas.
That's one heck of a prop, if that was a prop bet. I think this actually could be a buy. And I happen to think that McConaughey would have a better shot than people think because of the star power and the name ID. I think if he could get coaxed into not running a campaign, meaning don't go out there and do events all the time where you're talking all the time, because you're going to the key to him is the charm. He's one of the few left of center superstars in Hollywood that the average American really, really likes. And has gone out of his way not to annoy or offend the average American at the exact same time, right? Even to the point of scolding some of his own Hollywood friends and going too far with that. I think the more he would be enticed into a traditional political event where the crazies in his own party, he would, the constant pressure to appease them. And at some point, he's going to feel the human impulse to do it. And then when he does that, people are like, oh, you're just another Hollywood lefty. You know what I'm saying? If he could just not run actually a campaign, just say, I'm Matthew McConaughey, I'm running for governor, do a few speeches, but no campaign schedule. Not like day-to-day media appearances. We're going to get the crazy Don Lemon questions. Just avoid all of that. I think he could absolutely win governor of Texas. If he could pull that off, I don't know. That is kind of what Elder is doing. I saw something in Red State yesterday. Hey, is Larry Elder ever going to come out with plans for governance? That'd be dumb. First of all, how many books, columns? Are we really going to sit here today and act as if Larry Elder, over the course of the last 20 plus years, has not articulated a governing framework for you?
What's your backup plan?
Yeah.
The dude who wears dresses.
What do you think he did for 3 hours a day on the radio? What do you think that was? So if I were Elder, I'd keep doing what you're doing. Only do media like Fox. Do not have the Republican Party, as we talked about yesterday, come in and endorse you or anything like that. Just be the guy standing closest to Gavin Newsom when the fur flies. Just be the next guy in line. Just be there on whatever date in September that recall occurs.
See that? Throwing that name there on the end is the reason why Larry is the answer. It's because of Gavin Newsom. It's the fact that this is a up or down referendum in many respects.
I agree. Yep.
Of a guy who's hanging on, as Steve alluded to during the montage, by a very thin thread.
Yep.
Next up, we'll go to Jaron, the most likely public figure to be ditched to the curb after Andrew Cuomo is Dr. Fauci.
So, oh, how I wish it were true. And we were just talking yesterday about, maybe Fauci will start to hear the footsteps because his buddy that we wrote a chapter about, and these guys were as thick as thieves, and to the point that they were caricaturing themselves as De Niro and Pacino. But the spirit of the age here, as Steve says, it's fully that he's there. They will protect him at all costs. Other people will have to go down before him, just as sacrificial lambs. If he goes down, we're talking about Mordor. It's the whole zeitgeist is there. People's whole psychology and emotional state of being is built around him and that stupid bobblehead.
So, yesterday I reminded y'all I got it right on Cuomo the entire time. I got to keep it real, man. I thought by now we would have reached, particularly with the kids, about the whole battle about going back to school again, that the political realities of this toxic messaging, and they would have just needed some excuse to pivot away from it. And he would be the excuse that he's 80, he's got a nice pension, he's had his moment, he's lived out his usefulness. And I don't see that happening for all the reasons that Todd articulated. Now, I still account here in my calculation for the sovereignty of God. I'm not trying to Jesus juke you, but that ultimately we could just get up one day and there is a Me Too or tax evasion Al Capone in his life that gets exposed, and God uses that to say, all right, we've had enough of this construct. Right?
Yeah.
And he just goes away, even though it's not for the stuff that he should go away for. I could see something like that for sure, because I trust in the sovereignty of God. But just as the reason I was right about Cuomo is because I believed in the cynicism of the political process would in the end play itself out, which it did. I thought that same cynicism of the process would get here. That there would be an acknowledgement that it does us no good to take on all of the baggage we dropped on Trump for last year, and just to accept it now ourselves on lockdowns and masks and and schools. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But apparently there is a spiritual stronghold at play here that, it's like when the disciples say, hey, we keep trying to cast this demon out, right? And Jesus is like, hey, this kind of demon only get cast out one way. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It kind of feels like, and this is what I was alluding to when I was talking about him last hour. This is a layer of malevolence. This is beyond now. I think we're outside the laws of political reality now with this. And therefore, I think the answer is sell, unfortunately. I think given the timetable, Gavin Newsom's far more likely anyway. But I'm going to sell on this one, unfortunately. I think that there is a darkness surrounding this that goes beyond even political realities, a true malevolence here. And it's only going to get cast out a certain way.
Moving on to Ryan. Former conservative bastions Washington Examiner and National Review will be out of business within the next decade.
Washington Examiner's traffic is way too high. But I would agree with the National Review. In fact, I would argue Washington Examiner has basically taken their place. They have been smart enough with, people like Byron York and those people. I've known him for years. Byron came from NRO. They were smart enough to not go the Ramesh, is it Panuru?
Yeah.
Panuru.
Or is it Panuru?
Mm-hmm.
They were smart enough not to go that route. okay, where they're basically just now at times, like David French, arguing for and against things. Used to be for and against, or against or for, on the basis of whether Orange Man Bad chimed in on this one or not, right? Or anybody that you view as having sold out to Orange Man Bad. So they are kind of the Washington Examiner, like they went to the mattresses against Russian collusion and those sorts of things. Like NRI would never do that. I think they've basically taken that space away from NRO. Sort of how Marco Rubio took the space away from Jeb Bush as the consultant candidate. And we were talking that if we did have an open primary, would Nikki Haley do the same thing this time to Marco Rubio? I think Washington Examiner has kind of become the professional Republican Party class hub of information, and their traffic reflects that. And I think they've done that at the expense of NRO. So I will buy on NRO, sell on Washington Examiner.
I will buy, but not because of any selling out necessarily. I just think, let's say at the end of a decade, I think they'll be swallowed up to survive and co-opted, maybe because they're not sellouts in the Examiner's case. And quite frankly, in some areas, with the people they've employed in the past, they've sold out just fine. But maybe their thing is, well, we got a big tent. Okay, I can accept that, but I think I think we may have like conservative view being brought into the Blaze. Mm-hmm. I think that will be happening more and more by the end of the decade.
So consolidation is what you think. Okay.
Next up, we will go to Bacon, who says the definition of insanity is getting a COVID booster shot and expecting different results.
I won't go that far because I absolutely still believe, I'm talking to another friend of mine whose dad is in good health and he's 65. He's on day 5 of this, man. Okay? Or week 5, I should say, where he just cannot get over it. The stratification of this, folks, and it's truly amazing. Just how the light switches on this virus from 64 to 65. It's like it was designed to take out retirees. Okay? I mean, the level of data stratification, how the whole data set on this just changes. And because of that, I won't go that far. I mean, if I had if my mom called me up and said, "Hey, they're telling me I've got, waning antibodies from my vaccine. Do you think I should get a booster?" My answer would probably be yes, given her risk calculation. Now, I had another friend of mine who worked, I've worked in politics with for years, who's like, "Do you think I should get it?" And he's younger than me. And I'm like, I don't know. But now I've not heard back from him. And I'm like, are you autoimmune compromised in some way? Because if you are, I might have a different answer. But if you're not, then no, the risks of you receiving an adverse side effect are far higher than they are of you from COVID. This thing is stratified from an age perspective dramatically. That's why I would not go that far. So I'll sell.
I'll buy because of the spirit of the age, which doesn't take away what Steve has said. I mean, I sit here on a regular basis and say it's clear that this has had a prophylaxis effect on some level, at least for some period of time. But far more powerful than that is the psychological and emotional effect that this has on people. And there's already there was a story I read today about somehow against regulations that thousands have gone out and gotten a third shot of this already.
I thought they said it was 1 million people.
Okay.
Yeah. CDC said 1 million people have done this.
I didn't
on
want to
their
oversell
own.
it. I was trying to be, but yeah. I mean, people are deranged. They've lost their damn minds.
Jim Stalker says within the next 6 months, we'll see some form of legislation that imposes an unvaccinated status tax on those who have yet to get the COVID vaccine or refuse boosters, either at the state or federal level.
I mean, I could see maybe a state like Oregon trying something like that. Federally, that has no shot. None. Zero.
It has a shot of somebody trying it. We're not living insane times.
No, I was asked, the thing is that this will happen, right?
will be introduced.
Oh, introduced?
Okay.
Oh, I mean,
Yeah.
From now on, you're disqualified. I should have said this before. We will no longer accept submissions about legislation being introduced somewhere because crap is just too crazy everywhere. You got to be more specific than that.
They say,
okay, anything can get introduced by any means, by anybody at any time. There's a Sheila Jackson Lee in virtually in every legislature, 50 of them in every blue state legislature. So from now on, introduction of crazy will not be merit enough of us pontificating it.
Biden and company have said being unconstitutional is not really a primary concern of theirs. It just isn't.
Final one quickly. Brian J. Raper says, Steve's exit question on Friday alluding to 10 being how much Lindsey Graham loves mandates is the greatest double entendre in the history of the show. That was
I don't know. We've had others, but I'm here all week.
Yeah.
Try the veal. So thank you.
Yeah, Lindsey Graham, he's not going to get away with you not accepting that in this week. Maybe another week, but this one, yeah.
He said yesterday the worst was behind him.
I like mandate.
The weekly prophet of woe and lamentation is next. So we've been talking about rough greens for a while now. By now, you at least know what it is. It's that supplement powder that you mix in with your pet's food so that it puts back into your pet's food all the stuff that was likely taken out. The vitamins, minerals, nutrients, probiotics, antioxidants, the stuff your pet needs the most. Same thing that happens to our food, by the way. That's why we take so many supplements these days for the same reasons. They strip that stuff out of the food so it'll last longer and be fresher for mass consumption and distribution. Do the same thing for people as well as pets. That's why your pet needs a supplement too. Now, you might be wondering though, what if my pet doesn't like it? Well, one way to find out is if we give you that first 14-day Jumpstart bag for free. It's on us. You just pay a couple bucks for the shipping so you have some skin in the game to make sure you at least try it for your pet, see if they like it, because obviously their health is important. Roughgreens.com is where you can go to get that free 14-day Jumpstart bag where you just pay for the shipping at RUFF for roughgreens.com, or you can give them a call at 833-ROUGH-DOG. Again, 833-ROUGH-DOG. Let's bring in the weekly prophet of woe and lamentation, Daniel Horowitz. Good to see you, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing all right, Steve. Great to be back with you.
Good to see you, too. Since I am, of course, speaking to a prophet, let me bring you in on something I brought up on the show here during the first hour. And I tweeted about this earlier today. There's a clip going around of Anthony Fauci saying that, it's a shame you're going to have to sacrifice your individual freedoms because, we have a virus with a 0.59 case fatality rate currently. And the hospitals are overwhelmed with children. So I went and looked at the CDC's own data, Daniel. Latest data as of last week, they update this weekly, so we don't know what the numbers are this week yet. But as of the week ending August the 6th, their data showed, or August the 8th, their data showed that 1.8%, that's it, of all hospitalizations for COVID in America were kids of school-aged children, were 1.8%. That's actually 112% lower than what they were when the school year ended. And at no time in this entire pandemic has it been higher than 3.4%. At no point. Now, we're not even going to count. I know you've got an article about this today at The Blaze. I'll let you talk about. We'll get to it in a second. I'm not even going to discuss how many kids are in for RSV and it's getting coded as COVID. There have been, I think it was a UK did a study about how many of the kids that they were identified as hospitalizations for COVID. That's not what they were actually should have been coded for. Before we get into any nuances whatsoever, this is just a lot. I've never met Daniel, and you are maybe even more of a hardened skeptic than me. I've never met a force like this in my career. I've never seen anything like it. And I've had a lot of access to this process. Huge names, including the guy who was the last to sit in the Oval Office. Sit down one-on-one in a room, have him look me in the eye. I've never met anyone with this level of shameless gaslighting, malevolence, disregard for fact, the idea that we don't even bother to check his facts. I've never seen anything like this in my career. I don't know of anything like this in recent, maybe all of American history. I don't know what it was like living under a Mao or a Stalin or a Mussolini or Hitler. That's a different era from me. So I don't know if this was what it was like, where truth in the room was like chloroformed. It was like inaccessible. It couldn't be found. No one even cared to look. Have you seen anything like this before?
Steve, I think what COVID has done, and when I say COVID, I mean the COVID fascism, not the virus itself, although that might have been created by the same forces as well. It has basically coalesced all of the evil inclinations of man, control, hatred, tyranny, everything in one, and it's enmeshed it in this one bitter pill. And it's basically taken the lowest common denominator of humanity. I think it's more biblical, like what it was to live during the times of Abraham, where it's a religious view. You are not allowed to believe in anything that is not part of the religion. It's a new religion. It is absolutely a religion. It's a religion that forces people that spent their entire career studying medicine and science to now disbelieve what's in front of their eyes, to disregard things about medicine and science that an elementary school student knows. This is why, and I've been pounding away at this the last couple of weeks. It's why something like ivermectin or Pepcid or anything you use to treat COVID is the new Confederate flag. You would think like, hey, you guys care so much about COVID, so hey, look, let's treat it. But no, that is not within the guidelines of the church. And you are not allowed to do that. So it's like if you say the word ivermectin now, that's like saying Confederate flag. So that's where it's coming from. And that's why they will lie and cheat and steal to achieve their means. I had the same surprise as you. Even I thought, okay, there must be a little bit of an elevated level. And I looked at it and I saw, wait a minute, it's nowhere near the winter levels. And in the winter, no one was saying that this is a threat to kids. So even in their own data, you're right. It certainly doesn't show that, even before we get into the nuances. But it also demonstrates the ability of the media with theatrics and pictures and imagery to create an image that is completely detached from reality. Steve, have you ever seen one black individual filmed in an ICU on a respirator? Where they say, and his last words, or he said, I wish I would have gotten the vaccine and I made a big mistake.
No, even though that barely 28% of black America is vaccinated.
So you see where I'm headed with that.
Yeah.
Overwhelmingly blacks who, 90% vote Democrat, so you would assume it's somewhat evenly distributed, are much less vaccinated than conservative whites, by the way, for better or for worse. That's just a fact. According to CDC, in general, they're 4.5 times more likely to be hospitalized with COVID. So if you're going to see this bomb, you would see it overwhelmingly blacks, especially in the South, a lot of these cities in the South. I have not seen one video of them. Why not? I mean, and that's what they're able to do with this imagery.
Tell us what's going on with RSV.
So behind every lie is a truth. And I tell people, I think our base is making a mistake with certain things. They reflexively assume everything the left says is a lie. But you have to amend that statement a little bit. It's a little bit more nuanced. Everything they say is a lie, or it's true and they created it and their solution is making it worse and they're blocking the real solution. So it's one of the two.
So there's a difference between a lie. Everything they may do may be a deception. Right? Yep. That's its intent, is to deceive, but that doesn't mean in and of itself it is a lie, right? Is that the nuance?
In other words, global warming, anthropogenic global warming is a lie. COVID is not a lie, and they likely were behind it. And that is a very important thing. You can't deny certain things, and they need to be dealt with, but in the right way.
Right.
Here's the deal, Steve. So we already know from the data, we've seen this everywhere, that there's at least a 50% markup in hospitalizations from COVID, because there are people, especially during a time of great spread, you go into the hospital, nosocomial spread, a lot of them are going to come down with COVID, but it's not a big deal. They're there for a kidney stone, they're there for surgery, they're there for anything else. Now, that's going to be even more true with a kid, where it's more unlikely that they have clinical level illness from COVID. Hence, in the UK, 61% of COVID deaths from kids were not COVID deaths. So now you picture a scenario like this. We've locked people down for 18 months, and we've all asked the question ages ago. One of the first things you and I said, What is the effect of turning every kid into a bubble boy? These people rejected God's immunological ecosystem, which created this beautiful gradual way of kids getting pathogens and over time building up immunity, which is the exact reason why they are not vulnerable to COVID. Instead, they reject it and say they are vulnerable to COVID, thereby isolating them for a full year and a half of school, thereby undermining the antecedent to that immunological ecosystem, thereby now making them vulnerable. Now we have our first answer as to what's going to happen, and that's RSV. You're seeing a record surge in RSV for the summer, and in some places, doctors are reporting that it's rivaling winter spreads that they've ever seen, and they're going to the hospital. RSV, anyone could get, but it is particularly dangerous. I've had nephews that have been hospitalized as babies or toddlers with RSV. It's not uncommon, about 60,000 a year hospitalizations, and we live with it. We never, no one noticed it. We always lived with it. So we now have that now. So what's happening is they're going to the hospital. Guess what? If you're in Florida, you're in Arkansas, you're in a hospital, very likely you're going to get COVID. We never said they don't get COVID, except they don't get it seriously and they don't really spread it. They do get it. Now that's a co-infection. That's a COVID hospitalization from the very thing that they now made them vulnerable, because you have, it seems like you're designed to get it your first year of life. But if you don't get it because that entire cohort of infants sat it out, you get it a couple years later, 2, 3, 4, it's more likely to be serious. So, Steve, what we've seen with this virus is what Elijah said to Ahab. Have you killed and have you inherited? They don't just kill, but they benefit from what they've done and then use that as a pretext to further create a vicious cycle to isolate people more, rinse and repeat. This is truly demonic, Steve. It's worse than a lie. And by the way, if you look at the uptick in pediatric hospitalizations that's ascribed to COVID, again, less than the winter, but, more than it was before this wave started, it's more in the 0 to 4 cohort than the 5 to 17, which is a dead giveaway that it's RSV and not COVID driving that.
One last thing I want to ask you about. Let's take this into a purely political realm of analysis. So Ron DeSantis gets shorty right now. White House is going after him by name again today as we speak, right? Forget about the fact his state is 26th in COVID death rate from the beginning of the pandemic, and New York is number 2. It's the same pattern we saw last year. It's just now he's been more front and center about counterattacking against COVID, Stan. He's kind of the leading general. He's the Eisenhower now, basically. How's he doing? How's he performing? Because there is a political craftsmanship aspect to this beyond just, are you right on policy? He's going to war with school districts in his state, things of that nature. What do you think?
Well, I think obviously he's played his cards very well. And you know what? It's not just that he was the control group with the mask, but he actually did buy their stuff with the vaccine. I mean, 91% of Floridians are vaccinated. So
Florida seniors, you mean? Florida seniors,
yeah. And even their overall rate is it's roughly on par with California. So it totally blows up the myth of an epidemic of the unvaccinated. So I'm not even sure what the beef is with him, because remember, at least when this wave started, every state pretty much ditched the mask. Now a lot more have now brought it back, but at the time they all weren't doing it. So no one could point to that. So they say it was the lack of vaccination. Now, Arkansas, Louisiana have lower rates. Florida does not. So there is nowhere for them to run or for them to hide. And this demonstrates that all of their false messiahs were total duds. I would say the two things I would say he should do is call a special session, which I think he's trying to handle it without the legislature. But if they fight back these counties, call a special session. And number 2, I would love to see him make some of these therapeutics over the counter and put the pressure back on them. You guys are the ones not treating it and demanding that everyone come to a hospital for something that could totally be treated outpatient.
See, I suggested on the show last week that he needs to do with things like, especially with ivermectin. That just recently won a Nobel Prize, okay? And frankly, the data on it is better than even HCQ. So when they have the next Sunbelt wave next year, which they will, to some degree, unless we have some form of Salkian level achievement from a vaccine standpoint, and it's going to come within 100 days of his reelect, I think he's got to have a solution to the next round of panic porn. It can't just be a message or a principle on freedom. It has to be a solution. We have to have better solutions than what they offer, because in the end, solutions trump values. Okay, so what is his counter solution to this when they try to get rid of him in a reelect next year and run this exact same game plan back 12 months from now? I'll give you the last word in about a minute. Go ahead.
This is the one thing I wish our fellow rationalists, conservatives would get into. We have never seen a virus where they abolished all outpatient treatment. Zip, zero, nada. This entire thing for almost everyone doesn't become a problem until anywhere from 5 to 11 days into it. We now know you're in this area, you get a sore throat, you got to assume you have it. Right away, we have the ability to save endless people. I just had Dr. Brian Tyson on my show from California. He's treated 6,000 patients. Every single person who came to him before day 7 never even had to go to the hospital, much less died of COVID.
Great stuff, my friend. Good to see you. All right, take care.
God bless.
Same to you. If you are taking advantage of a booming real estate market, you should be right now. And don't hesitate, because all the economic trend lines are bad. Similar to 2008, which had some bad trend lines, and then also a booming real estate market. We've kind of seen this one before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would jump in now while the water is hot and before they close the pool, if you know what I'm saying. But make sure you do so with an agent for these unprecedented times.
Bing.
That you can trust, and you will find such an agent on this website. The name kind of says it all, after all. realestateagentsitrust.com is where you can find an agent who knows that they need to take charge of your situation while still working for you, and they'll come complete with a proven track record of success as well. Head to this website, realestateagentsitrust.com. Again, that is realestateagentsitrust.com. All right, final thoughts before we get out of here for the day, gentlemen.
Now, that last part there with Daniel, and he's been doing such a good job about talking about what the real scam of all of this is, and you're just simply not allowed to hope. That there's this thing called ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine or whatever the case may be that maybe doesn't work alone in everybody, or doesn't even, it has a wide-ranging range of possibilities, but it's much cheaper. It's much more understood in terms of the side effects.
And it doesn't cost you anything just to find out.
Yeah, and you just can't use it. That's Steve used the term in the past, lucid insanity. That's absolutely where we live right now. The zombies are among us, but they have PhDs. And they just apparently do not care. They're the ones who, honestly, they don't care if you die. They're saying that about you, but the reverse is true, which has often been the case in many things we talk about on this show.
Yeah, that's well said. And it seems overwhelming. I mean, Todd, you just mentioned the phrase, the real scam of all. There are like 50 real scams about this entire thing.
I know.
And it's just overwhelming on a day-to-day basis to keep up with all of it. But again, going back, that seems like what I keep coming to at the end of every show. The answer is always us. Just do what's right in front of you. Last night for Clay Travis and for Matt Walsh, I think as well, from the Daily Wire.
Yeah, he was there. I forgot.
What was right in front of them was their school board and rallying their troops around there. Just do what's right in front of you. It's a lot less overwhelming.
That'll do it for today. Until the next time, right here after Glenn Beck on Blaze TV Radio and Podcast, John 3:17.